Good evening and welcome to Canned with Tinnuts. We're just about to begin. Take your seats, get into a comfortable position. Today's session is called Mirroring Looks, and we're speaking with Elton Steve Vessoaker, the art director for Hair Masters Bandra, the Vella India Color Wave Ambassador, and Master Color Expert. And we'll be discussing the originality and recreation that happens in a salon chair. All right, so let's begin. Welcome everyone to Canned with Tinnuts. Today's session is titled Mirroring Looks, and we're streaming live on YouTube, Facebook, Instagram, and we're also, for our serious viewers, we're also on Zoom today. So all of you right now messaging in the chats, continue to do so. We're going to be picking up questions from all of these platforms. Feel free to interact throughout. And like I said, today's session is called Mirroring Looks, and we'll be discussing originality and recreation in a salon chair. And we're discussing this. We're happy to have on board today Elton Steve Vessoaker, who is the art director of Hair Masters Bandra and the Vella India Color Wave Ambassador and Master Color Expert. Hey, Elton.
Hi. Hello, everyone. Thanks for tuning in.
Thank you for being here, Elton. Firstly, I know I came to you very short notice and I said, Elton, I really want to do this. But I think there's a lot that the community can benefit from this.
I haven't been too busy of late. That's why I said yes. Yeah, so, but it's great information, to send out there to my fellow hairdressers, and most of whom are my friends, and we've had these discussions, and it's so funny that none of us managed to actually take it further and actually, speak to a professional who'll be able to give us actual professional advice on these things. So this should be really interesting. Yeah.
Yeah, and I think it's really important because today, if you think about any creativity that we were fixing in an offline format, it's going online in a rapid space. So we've been looking at, tomorrow we'll be discussing the events in experiential zone, which thus far you would experience on ground if you went and attended the event. But now those so-called intellectual properties have more standing or more footing as intellectual properties the moment they go online, and they're taking a more fixed or a more tangible format. And I think what's happening today also, I mean, although we've seen many photographs of that I've seen on your Instagram page, the moment you do a look or the moment you do a story of new looks, and that's documented. But today we're also seeing a lot of artists doing workshops, master classes, displaying their techniques, and taking us taking us through the entire process of doing highlights on hair or curls or using different products. And I think it's now even more important to explain to the community why they need to consider intellectual property and how they need to look at or relook at intellectual property and the existing systems in a new light.
Rafa, like what you've just said is completely true, but I'll have to share, as a hairdressing artist, and not just in Bombay or in this country, I'm just saying globally, we are we'll be completely finished if we didn't share information. We'll be completely finished if we didn't share each other's ideas. If I didn't look to my colleagues, whether on the salon floor, across salons, or even across countries, if I didn't look at their work and if they didn't share their techniques and their formulation and stuff like that, if they didn't do that, um, our knowledge would just be this much. You know what I'm saying? So in that aspect, there's we are a sharing community, and we require to do that to grow, not just for ourselves and our salons, but for the industry as a whole. Because everyone feels like that. Now there are, and I know a few hairdressers who are a bit, let's say, secretive, because at the end of the day, this is also their bread and butter. So not everyone is comfortable with sharing their sort of formulas or their recipes or their techniques, because I guess they do that much, and they know that that's what they need, which is fine, which is completely fine. So in that regard, I don't see the need for any sort of like copyright, or oh, that's my formulation. I'm looking more or for advice with regard to, if you've created a look,
Yes.
and suddenly you see your look somewhere else on someone's ad, for instance. You know what I'm saying? I'm just like, oh my God, that's done by me. Why is it a backdrop for someone else's something?
Yes.
You know what I'm saying? Like that's a bit, it's a bit like, if you can clarify how that works.
Sure. So that's really getting to the crux of it, and I have tons of examples to share with you today. I'm amazed by how the community as a whole, both I categorize that as the beauty industry, and how they've really taken and used IP strategies at different strengths. And I'll give you examples, and you'll see that. But first, I'd like to ask you a few questions, Elton. And to begin with, I'd really like to ask you, how do you, as a hairdresser, hairstylist, think of your creativity? How do you look at inspiration? So you've given us an example of looking at other pages or other content and techniques and growing through that. So firstly, how do you think? How do you relate to a client? What's the relationship that you have with a client? And what's the relationship that you have with a piece of work that you've done on someone's hair, on someone's body? And knowing that that piece, not only, yesterday we explored the fact that a tattoo artist may never see their work once it leaves the studio. Case, and I think it's, you may see that work again, you may see that client the very next month or the very next week, but the work that you created that day, the moment it leaves that salon chair, will never be the same. Because I think correct me if I'm wrong, it'll change from the first wash or the first brush, and it'll never be as it was for that very first time that you took a picture in your salon.
It's something I haven't ever thought of like so much. But it's so funny, because as soon as you spoke about the tattoo artist, and that's such a huge possibility that, they wouldn't see maybe that client again. Maybe the person just wanted one tattoo, But in this field, we're blessed that people mostly do come back, and they need to get touch-ups and reworks and recuts and all of that. But there are times when, sometimes a client, you feel you've done your best, and maybe they even liked it, but you don't see them again. But having said that, I do feel this strange way when I create something that truly, truly just overwhelms me. And I feel like, oh my God, this is one of my best works this week. And, like it's a tiny little warning, like I give my clients, and I'm just like, please make sure you take care of it. Make sure you try to make it look like what I'm sending it away looking like. And to be honest, I've had many clients in this past 18, 20 odd years that I've been working professionally out of salons, where I've met clients, at clubs, at shows on the street, in the market, and it is uncanny how as soon as they see me, at least 80% of them will reach for their hair. Like to do a little fidget,
Yeah.
a little adjustment.
Yeah.
And I laugh out loud and I just say, why? And they say, because you make us feel a bit nervous to make sure we are living up to what you created. And you know what? As I feel a bit bad about it because I'm just like, am I terrifying them? And do they feel I'm not approachable? And then I've realized it's not that. It's because they know how much I care about it.
Yeah.
They feel compelled to take that much care about it. So you know what? People can call me a horror, but I do it from the heart.
Yeah.
From here.
No, that's amazing, because that shows the relationship that you have with the artwork once it's created and once it leaves your salon doors.
Yeah.
And that kind of it's also, I will touch upon this, but I'd like to refer to it for your reference as moral rights. That's what we refer to as moral rights in the legal profession, and in IP and copyright, because what happens is once you create an artwork, it doesn't stop there. Copyright's a bundle of rights, and one of the strongest ones is moral rights. Being able to that comes with parental rights. So what that basically means is being able to or having the right to be known as the author of that work or the parent of that work, receiving due credit, and also being able to control the environment or the surroundings in which that work is showcased. Now, I'm not saying you can stop your clients from going to the bazaar with an amazing hairdo, but at least it's great that every time your clients look at you or meet you in social circumstances, they are touching for their hair because they're respecting that artwork, or they're respecting the work that you've put in for them. So
thank God.
But it's really amazing for me because, and forgive me if I'm referring or if I'm comparing too much to the tattoo artist community, because we just did that session with Samir Patange from Crayons Tattoo Studios yesterday, and for them they lose their, not their affinity, but they lose that, they don't have a connection with the artwork. They really have a connection with the client or the canvas itself. But it's great to see that in this respect. And I want to follow up my earlier question with another question, which is pertaining to specifically when you do work, and you do work not just in the salon. For our viewers, you do work on a lot of sets, and a lot of your work gets carried in film and fixated formats. And I know that was one of your concerns, as you mentioned earlier. What is it? What is that kind of relationship, and is it different to the one that you have with the works that you create in a salon versus or vis-a-vis a work that you create on set?
It's completely different, because when you're in the salon, you're working on a client, you are the expert, the expert, not just creator, but you are deciding what's going to be done. You're giving advice about what's going to be done. You're designing it and you're executing it. On a set, I'm not saying you don't have to do all of the above. You have to, but it comes with a pre-decided guideline. Not that lots of us are, like head of departments, head of hair and makeup would be there while they're deciding, what the hair and the makeup needs to be for a look. But the fact of the matter is, the creator of whatever it is, whether it's a film, a movie, an ad, or even print, the story, the person creating the story is going to say to you, this is what I need to convey, and then you start to design for them. However, when it's with a client in the salon, the story doesn't end as soon as someone says cut. It's ongoing. It's their life.
Yes.
We have to predict what's going to happen next. It's a controlled environment, a set. It's very controlled. Here we're dealing with people who knew we're going to be under lockdown for 40 days. If I knew that, I'd guide my clients better. Now we're managing to do it via social media. But if it was you know what I mean? The difference between the two. On a set, you're not going to get so emotionally connected to the work, because you have that ability to say, cut, I need to adjust something.
Yeah.
It's slightly more mechanical. Not that I'm
Mhm.
saying it's not artistic.
Mhm.
It's just like I feel when you're creating for people for day to day,
Mhm.
you're not going to be there to push that one strand away or to tuck something in. You're relying on your expertise to carry on for the next couple of months without your spot or your assistant being there to manipulate and to fidget. So it's very different. It's very different. How
And
fidgety am I today? I don't know. It's this chair, and then I didn't expect my legs to be seen, so I did just dressed half for y'all. So okay, sorry.
well, I won't show you my legs, but I I think I take another example, and maybe you have something different to say about this. But if for those of you who don't know, Elton and I go back to this amazing platform called the Zonals, which happen in Bandra. It's a community kind of art showcase and competition. Um, and Elton, let me come to the example of, I think between what you said and the thinking is very different from uh, a salon to a set. Where does theater rank? Because you've done, I can't say you've really done a lot of my hair because there's not much to do, but at least you've done a bit of my makeup and advised me on
Yes. Yeah.
how I should do my hair to fit into that character. And I remember at one point I was also playing a Sardar in
Yeah.
a way and was wearing a turban, so there was involved, things like that. So I
Yeah.
think theater sits right between the two. Correct me if I'm wrong, or maybe leaning towards real life and the salon experience.
So exactly, it's right in between there. So we put theater in between there with bridals, with parties, with functions, where you're going to create a look that has the durability of about 8 to 10 hours. You know what I mean?
Yes.
I'm going to design it and create it and sculpt it to be able to play out for the next how many ever hours without me having to have any interference.
Yeah.
So it is the middle ground between where I can say cut or where someone goes out and continues to live their hair,
Mhm.
you know?
So I think that gives me, or gives all of us viewing this, a very good insight into how you perceive your work, how you perceive that landscape, and how you're drawing out your canvas. And I think the answers will change. So I'm going to keep this to hairdressing and hairstyling, although you. I've seen you in capacities where you're doing makeup and you work with cosmetics.
Yeah.
But and the reason I say that is because the answers change and are skewed a little bit when it comes to makeup. It becomes sort of it just becomes like the same graph or the same timeline that you've drawn for salon, theater, bridal events, and films or fixated formats. Makeup, I would kind of put in the bucket of just like you have tattoos, which would be you're carrying for life. I put makeup on that timeline. So my answers would be kind of skewed if I were to do that. So forgive me, but I'll restrict it just to hairdressing. And I mean, well,
Yeah.
today is World Hairstylist Appreciation Day. So I'll take that. And here's a shout out to all our hairstylists.
Yes. Happy World Hairdresser Appreciation Day, whatever it is. It's too long, but we'll take it.
Yeah.
We'll
And
take it.
and now that we've shouted it out, a huge pat on our back to the hairstylist and hairdresser community for making us look so great. And I think we truly know the value of all of you right now in the lockdown. You know. Um,
Y'all serves y'all right.
um, all right, so
Alright.
Elton, now maybe this is a moment I think for you to ask me any questions that you have in terms of your work, ownership relating to your work. And it's not just hair, maybe it's clients, maybe it's looks, styles, colors, techniques. I'm here to answer all of those questions.
Uh, so I have been, documenting my work on Instagram and Facebook for a few years now. And I got into it because I realized that this is what the game had become. People stopped subscribing to magazines as much as they started now getting onto Instagram and Facebook. It's such a great advertisement for our work. That's why I started to get involved in it. And not only does it bring me business, it's given me a little bit of like, let me call it publicity with a few hairdressers who like to I'll get a couple of messages every week asking me questions or asking for little tips and tricks from hairdressers, which I find which is really lovely and very humbling. So I do put out content that is slightly educational, not completely, because I also do teach. So I do require people to come for that. So I can't give away all information, but I do give lots of areas that are sufficient for an artist to question their process and to figure a way in which direction to think. And I always do answer detailed questioning that comes to me privately. What I want to know is, when I put out information, it's clear that this information is mine to give you, and I wish for you to have it. I feel it's not correct when that information is then used by you to further your, let's say, social media. You know what I mean? Like, I feel like you take that information, you've learned to do something new, then you recreate that and put that out there. However, if you're going to use my content, it needs to be done in the right way. For example, there are like various apps, for instance, like the repost app, where it completely gives credit to the original creator. I very rarely use other people's images. Very rarely in the sense, like as a background or something like that. It's always my work. So even if I have some writing scribbled on hair, on color, it will be of something I've clicked a year ago, a month ago, a week ago. But I try to use my own content everywhere. Or it'll be a photograph I've clicked off a beach somewhere while I'm on holiday. I've not grabbed an image off of Google or Pinterest or anything like that. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
But and I feel like lots of viewers need to know the right way to do it. Lots of hairdressers, the way to put out their content, protect their content, and also not misuse anyone else's content.
Yeah, so that's a really pertinent question, because it comes from a space of a lot of vulnerability, because it is protecting someone's information, processes, recipes, and we'll get to images which are more protectable in nature. But firstly, and I'll also bring in and touch on databases, because I know that's also important to the community. And as hairdressers, your clientele are really important to you, because that's what keeps it going and keeps the trade and livelihood alive. So firstly, when it comes to your procedures, your recipes, and your techniques, even including how you mix two colors and a serum, and whether you spray on a serum first or you spray on a conditioner first, things like that. Forgive me if I'm speaking gibberish right now, but I'm just trying to stay relevant with the example.
Yeah, fine.
So when you talk about all those aspects, that's a trade secret information, and the way in the traditional sense, call it what you may, but in the traditional IP system, those are trade secrets. Now, these trade secrets have to be governed and have to be protected the way Colonel Sanders and the KFC Corporation would protect their 11 herbs and spices recipe. Right?
Such a mess.
So, and bear with me, it may not make practical sense, but essentially, when you're giving out your trade secret, what you're doing is you're letting out confidential information from your book or your bank as an individual or a salon or an organization out to a third party or someone who's requested that. And I think that should come with a license. Now, whether you choose to have that license as a written documented license. So for example, in the Repost app, those are written documented license, and they may be very well hidden within terms and conditions, or maybe as explicit as getting you to to agree to 5 sets of terms and conditions and specifically tick the check box. But in your case, if you're in a one-on-one conversation with the artist, it's very important, I would say, whether it's in an Instagram DM or a WhatsApp chat, to list the areas in which they can use that technique or they can't use. So that's the extent to which you can enforce a trade secret, being a recipe, a technique, a style, because that's what you're known for. And the stronger your trade secrets, or the stronger your approach to guarding those trade secrets is, the stronger your strategy is, the stronger you are as an individual or you are as an organization. And that can vary, and you can choose the threshold at which you'd like to set that. So coming to images, Elton, there's a lot more protection when it comes to images. And although this protection may exist, that's not to say or take away from the fact that infringement does exist and does happen. It's an evil that we deal with in a digital age. What you would have to do, and a common suggestion, I know you do it anyways, start watermarking pictures. And but here is where I'd like you to come in. And if how do you feel, or how do you kind of cure immediately? I know no hairstylist goes out and and files a suit against another hairstylist or hairdresser for ripping off someone's picture, but you'll usually call them out on social media, if I'm not mistaken, or probably is there some sort of
But it'll just, the thing is, it's a good thing that it's a good community. We truly are a very united community. And I feel like there wouldn't be the need for all of that. Like if I picked the phone up, or even took my message, a private message, and told the person that, this is being used, that's mine, it would be mutually agreed upon and taken down or whatever. So in that sense, I don't see it being such a issue. What I thought would be really nice was if we had this opportunity to educate people on doing things the right way, because it is legally incorrect to use other people's work, right?
Sure. Exactly. It is incorrect to do that. And it's not sufficient to say, I gave credit. That's one of the biggest misconceptions or misunderstandings, because in today's world, so say, for example, people know of concepts like fair use, and they'll say, I'm not trying to monetize it, or I've used a clip which is just 30 seconds. All of those concepts in reality, in legal standing, don't hold good. There is no threshold that any court in India has said that if you use only 10 seconds to 30 seconds, that's fair use or fair dealing. So let me explain the concept of fair dealing here and why it's become such a gray area in today's world. Fair dealing is in a space of where you're using something for educational purposes, or if you're using something for this commentary or critique purposes, it is not an infringing act to kind of share that work. All right. So for what does that mean? So for example, Elton, if I take your work and if I put it on my Instagram page and I'm saying this work could have been better if this process were used. Now that's a comment, a critique, or an analysis of the work that you've done.
Yeah.
Right? So that will be covered under fair use.
Okay.
Now, if I'm using that work in a journal, and we saw that with, and this is to all those institutes out there that do teach hairstyling and hairdressing and have courses. We've seen that we had Pranav Thakur, who's the CEO of Bar Solutions LLP in India and also heads the Cocktails and Dreams Institute. We've seen what he said, which was the journal that he put together, and their institute put together and gave all the bartenders studying there. They did it with open source material. That's material available on the internet. They put it together, aggregated that material, and gave it to their students. So they were using those as examples in classroom settings to educate the next rung or the next batch of bartenders on what are the recipes, what are the techniques, the entire ambit of bartending and mixology. So in that sense, I would say it would be covered under fair use. And a lot of fair dealing, forgive me, fair dealing is in the Indian context. Fair use is more to the American context and system. when you talk about, I'm not using it for commercial purposes. Now, it's very different today to say, to make a broad, a far-reaching statement like I'm not using it for commercial purposes today in the age of social media. So, for example, even an influencer on social media may say, I'm not monetizing my page or my content, right?
Yeah.
But that instrument or that format plays a part in the longer term goal of monetization.
Exactly.
So in this
every post I put up, in effect, I'm putting it up for more success.
Exactly.
I'm standing to gain from everything I publish on my page. And the thing is, you know what? I feel like people are finding loopholes into this. See, like you said earlier, it's another thing if it's done in praise of. You know what I'm saying?
Yes.
Like you put, like if I were to post something that you've created and say, stunning color by Tinnuts.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? I'm saying I like this and I'm sharing it because I think it's beautiful. I understand that completely. But someone just using the work without giving any sort of credit to the creator is going to help you look better for the long run, right?
Yeah. And I think,
not that I'm 60. See, the thing is also, even with the credit given, I am trying to make this page look a certain way, right?
yes.
But the fact of the matter is, am I not covering myself by giving you that credit?
Of course, I mean, we're in the content age, and the more content you have on your page, the more traction it gets. I was just having a chat with my sister today, and she was telling me about the Tinnuts page. We need to keep this sustained and keep posting and keep having content, because if you're not out there, you won't show up in people's stories. And I was overwhelmed as I am currently. But I completely get what you're saying, because if they're not creating on a daily basis, you're not creating content, or they're not creating. And I know how perfection oriented you are, so you won't post a look until you believe it is the best work that you've created, or a postable work. And I believe the other creators, the hairdressers, are and think the same way as well. So if they're not churning out postable work on a daily basis, what they're doing is they're sharing postable work from other pages onto their page and onto their followers, and then getting more views, more likes, more hearts, and keeping that engagement. So therefore, at all points, you are using it, and the end goal may not be commercially monetizing on that platform, but maybe in salon, it may be on other modes, and to get more inquiries or leads for shoots, to get contacted. And that's really the end goal at some point. So as long as there is that link, and there is that fundamental link, you can never argue that something's not for commercial purposes. So and I think that example kind of answers, or that analysis kind of answers that question. But I also like to touch upon something that we had discussed at one point, which is databases. All right, clientele, and I referred to it earlier on in this conversation. And I think this is really important for all your viewers and all our viewers today, because who owns that database and who owns that clientele? I think the best example, or the most relevant example, and I can give you here, is the example of law firms. You have partners in law firms, just like you're the director of art at Hair Masters. You have partners who have a certain clientele on whose briefs, the briefs of which they work on. And
that sounded so wrong.
Blame the profession, Elton.
Okay.
And if we have many instances of partners leaving law firms and moving on, the clients moving with them to additional to the law firm they join, or the law firm they found. And really, in most cases, law firms in their bylaws will also have certain bylaws specifically targeting taking clients along with you.
But you know that I understand that completely, Rafael. I completely understand that. See, at the end of the day, as an employee of a salon, people are, and I'm not talking about my clients. I'm just going to say someone who's come to my salon and gets put onto me.
Yeah.
Okay. I don't own that client.
Mhm.
Let's call it a salon client.
Yeah.
But eventually that person, if they keep coming back to me, is going to want me. Now, I'm not going to say that I own that client. I'm saying it's the client's prerogative.
Yeah.
If I leave tomorrow to follow me or not.
Mhm.
Correct? And I could possibly have that client's number, or that client could possibly have my number, which I contact the client and ask them to come.
Mhm.
That's all said and done because I have a one-on-one relationship for X number of years or months with this client. Okay. You know what I have a big problem with, which I've been hearing in the past few months, past few years, is it is quite sad, and it's a bit heartbreaking only because I really feel as hairdressers we really function as families. So
Mhm.
the whole salon is one unit, and then when you hear of things like this happening, it can be quite heartbreaking because I cannot imagine a manager,
Mhm.
someone whose responsibility is to possibly just take appointments and make sure stock and things are organized, applying for jobs, and um, part of their sort of how do you say, not qualifications, but the reasons to hire them is because they have a database.
Mhm.
That isn't that completely illegal?
Yes, of course it is, and and there again, Elton, that's because we don't have licenses in place. And when you look at databases, you look at databases of clientele. Those again are trade secrets, and the all. And I've given the example earlier in the week um, on a forum that I was speaking on for IP Day. You know, yellow pages in a
Yeah,
notebook, right? I
yeah,
mean, the yellow pages book.
yeah, yeah,
Nothing stops you from going out and creating another yellow pages book. But
yeah,
yellow page book companies or directories, they went out and started putting fake names and numbers into databases, right? What happened was the the infringers or the copied books rearranged
correct.
those fake names and numbers and published that book, not knowing which were the real ones and which
The
were
authentic, yeah, yeah,
the fake ones. Essentially, those fake ones were created and owned, and the original creator was able to enforce against those infringers
hmm,
because they copied those fake names as well, and those were works of
yeah.
fiction that they created.
But yeah, it
Did not
wasn't authentic data.
exactly. So
Oh my God,
maybe
that's so brilliant.
yeah, so maybe that's an example of how you can incorporate certain databases and keep them. Now I think
To protect
to
ourselves.
protect yourselves
Yeah.
as a database. Now from an organization or whether as an individual, that's what I would suggest. You keep those names and numbers in there, and obviously in a salon, and I've been to one of your professional capacity very few times, and you know that, and you've scrimped at me in the past for that, but I think the way those databases of that clientele is managed is you would give your clients are managed by either a receptionist or a relationship manager in a salon, and they have access to this directory. Now, although maybe the bigger salons have employee agreements, those kind of databases aren't really protected under non-disclosure agreements or non-compete agreements, that you cannot take any of these clientele with you, or you cannot take this information and databases with you. So it's a complete, but regardless if they are taking those databases away, you need to make it clear at some point. Now, if you haven't, it just becomes a he said, she said kind of you didn't say or you didn't disclaim kind of conversation. So it is very important for every new hire or every new um, individual that you're interacting with or assistant that
Hmm.
you're interacting with, that you make it clear that this is something that I have built and these are my contacts and this is
Yeah.
my property, and that And what you really do own, Elton, is not the names and numbers. What you do own is that selection and arrangement when you keep that data together. So that database itself, I'm not talking about the clientele, I'm talking about that database, the way it's stored. You own that selection and arrangement, the way you've put it down.
Okay.
And it doesn't become unique when you keep it in an Excel sheet, because anyone else can do that. But if you figure a way, like for example, you've written it down in a notebook and you've organized it alphabetically, or you've organized it in terms of who gives you most business or your top 5 earning clients, things like that. Those are ways, I think, that kind of creativity will help you kind of enforce a database even better. So I don't know if that answers your question. We had, Elton, with your permission, we had a question from the audience of, is it, so Dodo from the audience is requesting to cover poaching. And Zingarawan, Zing, forgive me if I pronounced your name wrong earlier. They're asking certain questions if we can further talk about content theft. I think, Zing, we've addressed that in terms of stealing images, presenting things as your own idea.
But Raphael, for Zing, can you just further explain how to protect our images further? What can we do to make sure because like I've seen lots of work that comes out of Zido Salor, and it's so creative and it's so unique. They have their distinct sort of, you look at it and you can say, oh my God, this is done by them. They need to know how to protect their work so that it's not misused,
Yes. So firstly, it begins.
Sorry. So let me just say to anyone from my Instagram who's watching this. So because we're doing this on Zoom, I can't see any of the questions. I cannot see if you guys are like messaging me or anything. I don't have access to any of that. So I can only see Raphael and myself.
So I've done that on purpose because I wanted Elton's 100% focus to be on me and this conversation and not react to all of you.
Yeah, you have to buy me dinner for that, mister.
I'm coming. But I can see all your questions, so I will keep pointing them out, Elton.
So please tell us about how do we protect our images of the work that we've created and clicked ourselves, and we've put it out on our social media.
All right. So I'll start from before you click that. All right. Now, what I'd like to give out this flat answer because I thought about it a lot. I've been thinking about it for the past 3 days, and it's come to me before when I thought of this series. I specifically wanted to put this in, and I made a statement earlier about the work. That work, Elton, if you think about it, and for all our viewers, will never be the same. And what that means is, for example, if you've created a work on me today, Elton, and tomorrow Zing or Dodo goes out and creates that very same work on someone else. One is the canvas that they're creating it on, correct me if I'm wrong, is very different. So my hair is different from the hair that they're
That's true.
it on. And the end product will be different. So that those minor differences will create a distinction and will be the reason why the work that Zido creates is a completely new registrable work in the eyes of the law. So it's completely new work, and because the work
but that's fine. See, as our community, we are really cool with people taking inspiration from, thanks Ma, taking inspiration from what we've done and recreating it on someone else. I'm saying if it's shot by us, it's my picture.
Okay.
Why am I seeing it on your wherever?
So I just wanted to clarify that because there were a few questions, I think, hinting at that. And now coming to the pictures part. So the first thing is, I know some people have even asked about content images, and they've reported it to Instagram and said, this is my content stolen, things like that. So let me take you through that process. So the first thing is, for an image, you should watermark it. Watermark it as uniquely as possible, so that around the hair, things like that. It becomes harder for someone to, and I know you want to conserve the look of the image.
No, I'm just so irritated that I have to do that. What?
Yeah, but the thing is, it's just making it harder for an infringer to go out and take that work, and they have to do a lot more work. They have to put it in editing apps or remove or crop the image, and then they'll lose maybe one or two waves in that image. And that's going to make it harder for them to do.
Yeah.
Now, in spite of you doing this, you have, through the digital media platforms, you have the mechanism of reporting it. And that's a longer process. That strike off, takedown kind of notices is a longer process. In the existing legal framework, where you think it's someone, and I would recommend this if it's a big whale, if it's a huge salon, or if it is a brand that actually takes your image and doesn't give you credit or uses it as its own, if I would suggest you just send them a notice.
Yeah.
And then you send them a legal notice.
And that's where we contact you guys.
Yes, that's where you contact us or any other legal counsels out there. And you get this notice sent to that brand or that salon, that individual. And, Elton, if you look at, and this is, I have a lot of people who have asked me, if this happens overseas, how am I going to do this?
Yeah.
And if you've ever tried to create a Facebook page, you will also see one part of it that's called Impressum. And I haven't given this example in other sessions before this week, but or rather, I haven't come to this point. Impressum is for certain jurisdictions like Germany, Austria, I believe Spain. I could be wrong. But what happens there is a page owner needs to be liable for that page, or has to take ownership of that page for certain corporations. So, for example, if a Dyson creates a Facebook page in that country and they create Dyson Germany, they would have to put down the subsidiary or the parent company that owns that page. Now, what it does is, for example, if they take an image of a hairstylist in India and put it up there, what that's going to do is if that's an infringing work, it's going to create criminal liability in that jurisdiction as well. So then a Tinnuts can go out and contact our partner law firm in Germany and get you a big fat settlement and say, hey, you know what? Now you can retire and only do walk into the salon once a week, Elton, and you don't need
that'll never happen.
Yeah.
We love our work.
But maybe you can say no to work that you don't want to do. So the next time I walk into the salon, you really hate my hair, you can say no. You come to me after 3 weeks of treatment, and then I will touch your hair. So that's my answer there. And I'd like to. We had another question of from Cynthia John, who is a part of Tinnuts, and it's a great question. She says, is it possible to trademark a look which is inclusive of hair and makeup when it walks a ramp, or how to make a look an artist's signature? And I know we've discussed this also.
Sorry, I didn't understand it. I didn't get it.
So is it possible to trademark a look which is inclusive of hair and makeup? So a complete look that you've created for a cinema screen.
Okay.
Is it possible to trademark that when it's on cinema, or that look that you've created for on a
the thing is, firstly, a paid job, you're not going to get a credit for it. You could possibly get a credit, but the production house that's recruiting you to create this look is also paying you for it. Now, sometimes there's a barter where you do it for free for the credit of it. So that becomes your work property also. Now, that's when it's extremely essential that when they are using that to give you credit initially, and then you also have ownership of that to use it in your capacity. But usually when it's a paid job, you don't have, you can advertise it as this is something I've done, but I cannot take a look that I've done, let's say for a movie, and then use it in a hair ad. I have to reshoot another ad.
Okay, so
because it already belongs to someone else. No,
I think you're right. And what you're speaking about for everyone here, I'd like to term that as commissioned work or work for hire, because someone who's hiring you is asking you to create that look, is giving you a brief, and then is asking for your services to create that look. So what you're saying is right, Elton. But now let me put this in perspective and put this for example, when you're doing a work for a bridal engagement or an event, all right, and let's say you're creating a look for a Met Gala, or a look for a client who you know the world is going to be watching, and this is going to be,
Ooh,
yeah, this is a
soon,
work.
soon.
This is a work that actually will be the work that gets you the most traction or gets you the most leads or referrals on all platforms and drives that attention to you. Now, how do you protect that work, and then how do you use it? And let me put this in context.
How do I see? The thing is, I can only protect uh, images that I've taken, because once the person is out of my sort of, they're going to be shot by the paparazzi, they're going to be shot by friends, by themselves. Da, da, da. There are going to be images floating, but a perfect sort of photograph that I've taken, I'll only have could probably, with the permission of the client, get sort of some sort of trademark over that image. I can't have a trademark over all the images. Possibly if it is a completely signature look that has never been seen before, I come up with a new sort of device to create something magnificent, which I hope I can do someday.
So exactly to that.
Then
I'm talking about that.
Then I will have to come knocking on your door and ask you, how do I trademark this?
So so the look, although creating that trademark look will take a lot more time, and it is kind of difficult, because so let me put this in perspective, Elton. You're selling styling and you're selling dressing. You're not selling wigs. So unless you can create, so Tyra Banks was suing companies that were creating wigs and claiming it to be a Tyra Banks look without her permission. All right. But what you're doing here is you're creating those looks. So to enforce that, the product is what you're trademarking itself. So that trade dress is the product itself. It's very different from when you look at the cover of a Vela bottle, which is protected by trade dress. It's the real product is the content inside it, is the gel or the serum inside that bottle. It's not that the trade dress or the cover itself. So I don't think you'll be able to fully enforce that look or that style there. And I'm going to sum this up quickly, because I know we want to keep this as a story on your Instagram page. We don't want to cross the threshold of 1 hour.
Yeah.
What I would say is, in this entire week, we've been looking at trademarks and copyright to protect everyone who's spoken with us. We haven't, and we've spoken about trade secrets also, but we haven't touched upon something that you all know, and I believe has a lot of protection and a lot of standing in terms of the amount of investment made into it, and that is patents or patents, as you may know them. And that's exactly what you were talking about. If I take a device, and I want you to think bigger, think the biggest possible way you can, Elton, and you create the Red Queen's look in Alice in Wonderland. But for example, you create that in your salon, not for a commissioned work. You create a Met Gala 1600s Indian princess look, and you've created it in a way which involves weaves, involves textures, involves dyeing, and involves pins in intricate positions, which I'm sure you will need an assistant for you to record where those pins go and draw a diagram of how you're going to create that look. That, my friend Elton, is patentable. And that's the first time we've said this on this series, because it's a complex set of procedures and hooks by which you've come to this design. So it has to be novel, of course. So that cannot exist. And for all those viewers who look at me, and even for those legal minds who will refute this, I'd like to tell you, Elton, there are about 180, 190 upwards odds patented hairdos that exist currently on patent databases across the world. So with that being said, I mean, I hope that answers the question for our viewers. It is taking that look that you've created in your salon and then licensing it. I think that's a new avenue for your clients. So your period works that you do, which I mean, period works of characters based in history. That's something that you can license to a movie, you can license to an ad shoot. And instead of it being the other way around, where the client comes to you with a brief, you will own a space. And that I've seen that you can look at the example of people who do special effect makeup. So they do cuts and they do silicone and they create scars on people's faces. People go to them and contact them and try and, license out looks for them. So they have existing work that they have created, and those are products that they're going out and licensing out to those films and those ad films there. So I think that's the direction you should look at. So aim for the stars and look at that direction, because that's when you know you've cracked it. And I think that should be your ultimate aim. That's where I rest my case.
Okay.
So it's been a great session.
I don't even know who came to watch.
So now this is the surprise
Sorry,
for you.
guys.
This is the surprise for you, and you can actually go out and crack a whip on anyone who didn't tune in at that point. But this video,
No, it's okay if you're busy doing other things, you know what I mean, like lolling in bed watching Netflix. That's fine. I just wanted to see who did show up.
All right, well, you still will be able to see that. So these videos will be available on the Tinnuts Facebook page. Today we are streaming on Elton's Instagram page. So this will be in Elton's story. Go out, check it there. And we're hoping to see all of you in the future. This is Canned with Tinnuts, and this has been a conversation between me, Rafael Pereira, the managing partner of Tinnuts, and Elton Steve Vessoaker, the art director for Hair Masters Bandra. And it's been a pleasure, Elton. Thank you for being here today. Thank you
for having
gracing me with your presence. And thank you to all our viewers. We'll be back with further sessions in like this. Do tune in and check it out.
Okay.